Hey, welcome to Stellar Eureka. If you do a quick Google search, you might discover there are thousands of fruits in nature. But when you walk into your supermarket, you'll notice they stock the same dozen again and again. Why? Most of the world's most incredible fruits exist in a parallel reality where logistics don't matter and patience is infinite. Some ferment before you can get them home, others take a full year to ripen section by section. A few taste like chocolate but aren't chocolate, while one rewires your taste buds to make lemons taste like candy. They all remind us that nature never designed fruit with groceries in mind. Today we're uncovering 50 extraordinary fruits that remain rare, elusive, or downright impossible to find in stores. By the end, you'll find yourself booking a trip to Brazil, or at least wondering what you've been missing. Let's start at once. Deep in the Amazon rainforest grows a fruit so unique that indigenous tribes call it the pharmacy in a pod, and modern science is beginning to understand why. Cupuaçu's thick brown shell cracks open to reveal pale, creamy pulp that clings to dark seeds like strands of silk. The aroma hits first, sweet, musky, almost intoxicating, filling the air with notes that remind you of cocoa but twist into something entirely different. For centuries, Amazonian communities have relied on it, not just for food, but for medicine and ritual, sustaining them through harsh, dry seasons. It contains theobromine instead of theobromine, giving it chocolate-like qualities without the caffeine kick. Its butter absorbs water at 240% its weight, making it more hydrating than shea or cocoa butter. Today, sustainable harvesting programs help indigenous communities profit from their ancestral knowledge, while health companies incorporate it into premium skincare. Open a star apple horizontally and you'll witness something magical. A perfect 8-pointed star radiates from the center, formed by seed cavities arranged with geometric precision. The smooth, glossy skin ranges from deep purple to pale green, so polished it reflects light like waxed leather. Beneath that shell lies translucent, jelly-like flesh that clings to the skin in segments, each one glistening like mother of pearl. Spanish conquistadors encountered star apples in the 16th century, finding them already woven into Taino culture. The indigenous people called it quemito and used its bark to treat diabetes, while the fruit was reserved for celebrations and offerings. Modern Caribbean farmers are rediscovering it as interest in heritage fruits grows, with jam makers and ice cream artisans seeking out purple varieties for their intense sweetness and visual drama. In the scrublands of Brazil's Cerrado, a fruit drops to the ground when it's ready, refusing to be picked a moment too soon. Mangaba looks deceptively simple, a yellow-skinned oval about the size of a plum with a waxy coating that makes it slippery to hold. But the moment you bite through that thin skin, the experience transforms. The flesh is impossibly soft, almost liquid, with a flavor that dances between mango, apricot, and something faintly floral you can't quite name. Pick it too early and white latex bleeds from the wound. Sticky, bitter, mildly toxic. The tree knows when you're cheating. Brazilian quilombola communities have harvested mangaba for generations, never climbing trees or shaking branches. Instead, they spread clothes beneath and return daily during the 3-month season, collecting only what has fallen overnight. Imagine a lemon that forgot how to be a lemon and became pure fragrance instead. Its flesh evaporated into fingers of golden zest. Buddha's hand looks like something from a fever dream. Bright yellow citrus fruit split into finger-like segments that curl and twist like the tentacles of some exotic sea creature. There's no pulp, no juice, no edible flesh to speak of. The entire fruit is rind and pith, each finger filled with white spongy interior and a thin layer of intensely aromatic zest. Hold one in your palm and the scent fills the room. Sharp lemon with notes of lavender and jasmine, so potent it seems to shimmer in the air. In China, wealthy families displayed Buddha's hand on New Year's altars, believing praying fingers brought prosperity and longevity. Today, mixologists prize it for infusing spirits. 30 years of genetic experimentation to create the perfect summer fruit sweeter than plums, juicier than apricots, and unlike anything nature made on its own. Pluots appear in a dazzling array. Some are deep purple with crimson flesh, others chartreuse-skinned with amber interiors that glow when backlit. The skin is smooth like a plum's, but taut and glossy, often with a light dusty bloom that wipes away to reveal jewel-toned color. Bite into one and the texture surprises. Firmer than a plum, juicier than an apricot, with flesh that somehow manages to be both crisp and succulent. The flavor leans heavily toward plum but is sweeter than either parent, with sugar levels reaching 20 to 24 Brix. Geneticist Floyd Zager spent decades back-crossing plum cots with plums to create something 3/4 plum, 1/4 apricot. He trademarked Pluot in 1990. Some fruits dangle from branches like ornaments. This one erupts straight from the bark, turning tree trunks into living pillars of purple jewels. Jabuticaba grows in a way that defies expectation. Glossy, grape-sized fruits cluster directly on the trunk and thick branches, transforming the entire tree into a fruiting surface. Pop one in your mouth and the experience is pure, sweet jelly with a hint of tartness, reminiscent of muscadine grapes with lychee. The fruit oxidizes within 3 days of harvest, turning from flesh to fermented almost before your eyes. Indigenous Tupi people considered jabuticaba sacred, using every part. Fast fermentation was not a problem, it was an opportunity. Within 48 hours, fresh jabuticaba transforms into wine, a process Brazilian families have perfected over generations. If fruits could have identity crises, feijoa would be the poster child. A guava that tastes like pineapple, smells like perfume, and conquered New Zealand despite being South American. Scoop out the jelly-like interior with a spoon, and you're met with a flavor explosion. Pineapple and guava, yes, but also hints of strawberry, mint, and that distinctive artificial banana flavor that's actually closer to how bananas used to taste. The aroma is intoxicating, floral, and fruity in equal measure, strong enough that a bowl of ripe feijoas perfumes an entire room. New Zealand adopted the feijoa so enthusiastically after its 1920s introduction that many assume it's native. Backyard trees became a Kiwi tradition. What makes it truly special is its high iodine content and vitamin C levels that rival oranges. Long before chocolate bars lined checkout aisles, Mediterranean civilizations sustained themselves on dark, sweet pods that dangled from evergreen trees like leathery brown beans. Crack one open and you'll find a fibrous, sticky interior surrounding hard seeds, those same seeds jewelers once used as standard weights, giving us the word carrot. The flesh tastes naturally sweet with notes of caramel and cocoa, though earthier and less complex than true chocolate. Chew it raw and it's almost chalky, but roast and grind the pods and the sugars caramelize, deepening into something rich and satisfying. Ancient Egyptians used carob medicinally over 4,000 years ago. A single mature tree can produce up to 250 pounds of pods annually for over a century, thriving in drought conditions that would kill most crops. In the mountain valleys of Japan and Korea, where winter frosts bite hard, a citrus fruit commands prices that would make lemons blush with envy. Yuzu looks like a bumpy, misshapen lemon left out in the cold, and that's not far from the truth. The flesh is disappointingly full of seeds and light on juice, but squeeze what little juice there is and you'll understand the obsession. It's tart like lemon, floral like mandarin, with an aromatic complexity that includes hints of grapefruit and something almost piney. A few drops transform a dish, adding brightness that cuts through fat and elevates simple ingredients into something restaurant-worthy. Japanese cuisine has celebrated yuzu for over 1,000 years. Western chefs pay premium prices for imported yuzu juice, often $30 or more per small bottle. The Kalahari Desert produces a fruit so bizarre-looking that grocery stores struggle to convince shoppers it's actually edible, a spiky orange pod that looks more like a weapon than food. Kiwano's exterior is covered in horn-like protrusions, giving it the appearance of a medieval mace dipped in orange paint. Slice through that armored exterior and you're met with something completely unexpected: luminous green jelly studded with pale seeds. The texture is slippery and refreshing, the flavor subtle and cucumber-like, with hints of banana and lime, tart enough to wake up your palate. The San people of the Kalahari have relied on kiwano for hydration during dry seasons for thousands of years. The fruit's thick skin prevents water loss even in brutal desert heat, making it a portable water source that can last weeks without refrigeration. In Southeast Asian villages, children scrambled up trees to harvest translucent orbs that taste like grapefruit dipped in honey. One wrong seed and the sweetness turns aggressively bitter. Langsat grows in hanging clusters like grapes, each fruit about the size of a large marble with thin, beige skin that peels away easily. The flesh inside is divided into segments that glisten like frosted glass. Most segments are purely sweet with subtle tartness, but occasionally you'll encounter one containing a seed, and biting into it releases a bitterness so intense it makes your whole mouth pucker. For centuries, langsat trees have shaded village courtyards across Indonesia, Malaysia, and the Philippines. The fruit doesn't travel well, the delicate skin bruises easily, and the flesh begins to ferment within days. This fragility has kept langsat stubbornly local. Peel back the skin that looks and feels like snakeskin, and you'll discover why Indonesians call this the fruit of memory. One bite supposedly sharpens your mind, though that might just be the tart shock waking you up. Salak's reddish-brown scales overlap in geometric perfection, creating a shell so realistic that first-timers often hesitate before touching it. Pinch the pointed tip and pull, and the skin separates cleanly, revealing 3 lobes of cream-colored flesh that look like giant peeled garlic cloves. The texture is a real surprise, simultaneously crunchy and moist, like a firm apple crossed with a raw chestnut. The flavor hits in waves, sweet at first, then increasingly tart, with notes that suggest pineapple, banana, and hazelnut, all competing for attention. Balinese farmers have cultivated salak for centuries on volcanic slopes. The palms are covered in vicious thorns, making harvest painful despite protective gear. From protective scales, we turn to a fruit with a darker defense, one that's poisonous until you know exactly when and how to eat it, yet remains a national treasure. Jamaica's national fruit will kill you if picked too early, but wait for it to yawn open naturally, and you've got breakfast that tastes like scrambled eggs growing on a tree. When unripe, ackee is deadly. The entire fruit contains hypoglycin A, a toxin that causes fatal Jamaican vomiting sickness. But at perfect ripeness, the pod splits into 3 sections, revealing shiny black seeds cradled in soft, creamy yellow arils that look uncannily like scrambled eggs. Only these arils are safe to eat, and only after the fruit opens naturally. The texture is buttery and delicate, the flavor subtle and nutty, almost savory, which is why ackee pairs perfectly with saltfish in Jamaica's national dish. Australian rainforests hide a citrus that evolved as if it knew molecular gastronomy was coming. Tiny caviar-like pearls that pop with intense lime flavor, ready-made for the world's fanciest dishes. Slice a finger lime lengthwise and thousands of tiny juice-filled vesicles spill out like glossy pearls, each one a miniature burst of intensely tart, floral lime flavor. They don't cling together like normal citrus segments. Instead, they're individual spheres that roll freely, earning them the nickname citrus caviar. The texture is extraordinary. Bite down and each pearl pops, releasing juice that's sharper and more aromatic than regular limes. Indigenous Australians used finger limes for millennia. In the early 2000s, high-end restaurants began clamoring for them. Finger limes sell for $3 to $5 per fruit, astronomical compared to regular limes. New Zealand rebranded this South American fruit in the 1960s because tree tomato sounded too weird. and yet even with a prettier name, it remains defiantly strange. Tamarillos dangle from small trees like elongated plums, their glossy skin ranging from deep red to golden orange. Slice through and you're met with a sight that screams tomato. Firm outer flesh surrounding a pulpy core packed with edible seeds. But that's where the comparison ends. The flavor is tart and complex, somewhere between passion fruit, tomato, and tamarind, with slight bitterness near the skin. The texture is dense and almost meaty, requiring a spoon to scoop out the seedy pulp. When they reached New Zealand in the late 1800s, farmers struggled to market them until a clever 1967 rebranding gave them an exotic new name. The strategy worked for decades. Inside this wrinkled pod hides a cavity of golden seeds suspended in translucent jelly that tastes like concentrated tropical sunshine. Passion fruit looks unappealing from the outside, its purple or yellow skin dimpling and wrinkling as it ripens. Slice through that leather exterior and amber gemstones glisten in aromatic pulp. The flavor explodes with intense tartness balanced by floral sweetness. You eat it seeds and all, crunching through them to release every drop of juice. Spanish missionaries named it after seeing Christ's crown of thorns in the flower's corona. Today, passion fruit flavoring appears everywhere, but nothing matches spooning fresh pulp straight from the shell. That electric tang converts skeptics instantly. Costa Ricans call it the sleep fruit. A few bites before bed supposedly sends you into dreams so deep you wake up wondering what day it is. The pale green exterior bruises at the slightest pressure, but inside lies creamy white flesh with a texture of soft avocado mixed with banana. The flavor is subtle and sweet, reminiscent of vanilla custard with hints of banana and peach. It's so mild it almost disappears on your tongue, which is precisely why it never conquered commercial markets accustomed to bold flavors. Aztecs valued the white sapote as both food and medicine, brewing the leaves into sedative teas. The tree produces abundant fruit, but that paper-thin skin makes shipping impossible. California backyard growers treasure it as their gentle, forgotten secret. If lychee is the exotic beauty that caught the West's attention, longan is its sweeter, humbler cousin that Asia kept for itself. Crack the thin, tan skin between your fingers, and translucent flesh slips out, less floral than lychee but more straightforward in its honey sweetness. A single glossy black seed sits in the center, earning its Chinese name dragon eye for the way that dark seed peers through translucent flesh. The texture is slippery and juicy, refreshing without being watery. Chinese texts from 200 BCE mention longan cultivation. The fruit dries exceptionally well, concentrating sugars into chewy morsels used in soups and teas. Fresh longan floods Southeast Asian markets from July through September, sold by the kilo for a fraction of the lychee's price. Southeast Asian street vendors watch customers navigate the tricky balance between perfectly ripe or disappointingly sour, knowing half will get it wrong. When fully ripe, gandaria tastes like mango mixed with pineapple, sweet and tangy with resinous undertones that hint at its relation to cashews. But catch it underripe, and the sourness will make your face pucker for minutes. The flesh clings stubbornly to a large, flat seed, requiring teeth and determination. Locals often eat green gandaria dipped in salt, chili, and palm sugar, transforming aggressive tartness into an addictive snack. Indonesian and Thai cuisines use unripe fruit in sambals and curries, where its acidity brightens rich coconut sauces. The tree produces fruit twice yearly, yet gandaria remains virtually unknown outside Southeast Asia. Gandaria makes you work and gamble for its sweetness. Our next fruit offers the opposite, with flesh so soft that Mark Twain called it deliciousness itself. Mark Twain tasted this in South America and declared it the finest fruit on earth, though its scaly green exterior looks like something that should have died with the dinosaurs. Inside that reptilian skin lies creamy white flesh with a custard-like consistency that demands a spoon. The flavor is an impossible fusion of banana, pineapple, strawberry, and bubble gum, sweet and complex with a texture so smooth it melts on your tongue. Black seeds are scattered throughout, making eating cherimoya a careful exercise in navigation. Incan terraces have cultivated cherimoya for over 2,000 years at elevations where temperatures stay mild. The tree requires farmers to hand-pollinate each flower with tiny brushes, since natural pollinators don't exist outside the Andes. California's Central Coast grows limited quantities, with single fruits selling for $5 or more. Bite into this dull brown fruit, and you're tasting the same chicle latex that once filled every pack of Wrigley's gum, back when chewing gum actually came from trees. Sapodilla looks like a potato wearing fruit cosplay, giving no hint of the amber treasure inside. The flesh is grainy like a pear, but sweet like brown sugar melted into honey, with notes of caramel and malt. The texture is unique, slightly gritty from stone cells, but still juicy. Wait for it to soften until it yields to gentle pressure, and the flavor intensifies into something that tastes like dessert grew on a branch. Mayan civilization tapped sapodilla trees for chicle latex thousands of years ago. When Thomas Adams encountered chicle in the 1860s, he revolutionized the chewing gum industry. Modern synthetic gum has mostly replaced natural chicle, but the fruit remains a local favorite. Filipino farmers crack open certain coconuts expecting water and firm flesh, only to find the entire interior filled with soft, jelly-like curds that defy every rule of coconut biology. From the outside, macupina looks identical to regular coconuts, but where normal coconuts develop firm white meat and clear water, macapuno's entire cavity fills with translucent, gelatinous flesh that looks like coconut pudding. The texture is soft and spreadable, somewhere between jelly and custard, while the flavor is intensely sweet and coconut-forward. There's little to no water, just soft flesh that scoops out in globs. This genetic mutation occurs randomly in about 1 in every 100 coconut palms. Filipino dessert makers prize it above all other ingredients. A single macapuno coconut sells 5 to 10 times the price of regular coconuts. In Southeast Asia, this spiky titan divides humanity into two camps: those who'd cross cities for one bite, those who'd cross streets to avoid the smell. Durian is football-sized, covered in hard pyramid-shaped spikes that can draw blood if you're careless. Crack through that fortress and you're hit with an aroma compared to rotting onions, turpentine, and gym socks. Yet the creamy flesh inside tastes like sweet almond cream mixed with caramelized onions and savory cheese. The contrast between smell and taste seems like evolution's cruel joke. Each pale yellow segment wraps around large seeds with a texture so rich it coats your mouth like butter. Thai and Malaysian royalty once reserved the finest varieties for palace consumption. The saying, "durian down, sarong up," refers to villagers who'd sell anything, even clothing, to buy durian during peak season. Singapore bans it on public transit due to the lingering smell. Brazilians call it biriba, and one taste explains why its scientific name literally includes the word delicious, though that spiky exterior sends mixed messages. Rollinia resembles a hand grenade covered in soft, fleshy spines that bend rather than poke. The yellow-green skin gives way to creamy white flesh, impossibly sweet and custard-like. The flavor combines lemon meringue pie with tropical fruit salad, tasting like cherimoya's sweeter cousin with extra vanilla notes. The texture is so soft and delicate that overripe Rollinia turns to liquid mush within hours, timing everything. Indigenous Amazon communities cultivated Rollinia long before Portuguese colonizers arrived. The tree produces abundantly, but the fruit's extreme fragility has kept it local. Even within Brazil, Rollinia rarely travels far from where it grows. Attempts to commercialize it have failed repeatedly because the fruit becomes overripe seemingly overnight, going from perfect to fermented in less than a day. Cut open this green fruit and you'll swear someone injected chocolate pudding inside as a prank, except this pudding grew naturally on a tree and contains 0 cacao. Black sapote hangs like a green tomato until fully ripe, when it softens dramatically and the flesh inside transforms into dark brown, almost black pudding. The texture is genuinely pudding-like, smooth and creamy without a hint of graininess. The flavor suggests mild chocolate mixed with dates and caramel, sweet but not intensely so, with subtle bitterness that does recall cocoa. You can eat it with a spoon, straight from the skin, and it's often blended with milk to make desserts that fool people into thinking they're eating actual chocolate mousse. Aztecs and Mayans called it touch and ate it fresh or fermented. The tree is actually related to persimmons, not cacao, making its chocolate-like qualities a remarkable case of evolutionary coincidence. Health food advocates tout it as a guilt-free chocolate substitute. Filipino cuisine would collapse without this tiny citrus that's too sour to eat straight, but transforms every dish it touches into something bright and addictive. Calamansi looks like a miniature orange, barely larger than a grape, with thin green skin that turns yellow-orange when fully ripe. Slice one open and you'll find juice so tart it makes lemons seem mellow, with a floral complexity that regular limes lack. The flavor is intensely sour with hints of mandarin sweetness buried underneath. Filipinos squeeze it over everything from grilled meat to noodle soup and mix the juice with water and sugar to make a refreshing drink that rivals lemonade. The Philippines claims calamansi as a national treasure. Every backyard seems to have a tree producing fruit year-round in the tropical climate. Attempts to introduce calamansi to Western markets have struggled because the tiny fruits yield minimal juice compared to regular limes, making them seem impractical despite their superior flavor. Africa's tree of life produces powder-filled pods that dangle from branches for months, creating fruit that's already dehydrated before you even pick it. Baobab pods look like fuzzy, oval-shaped coconuts covered in velvety brown fuzz. Crack one open and instead of moist flesh, you'll find chalky white chunks surrounding seeds already dried into a powder-like consistency. The taste is intensely tart, almost citric acid sharp, with subtle notes underneath. You don't eat baobab fresh because it's never fresh in the traditional sense. The pulp dries naturally inside the pod while still on the tree, creating a shelf-stable powder that can last years without refrigeration. For millennia, African communities have relied on baobab during droughts when other food sources failed. The powder dissolves easily in water, creating a tangy drink packed with vitamin C at levels 6 times higher than oranges. The trees themselves live thousands of years, with some specimens exceeding 2,000 years old. Vietnamese New Year celebrations aren't complete without this spiky scarlet fruit that's less about eating and more about extracting the reddest oil nature ever created. Guck resembles a small spiky watermelon covered in short, soft protrusions, its skin turning brilliant orange-red when ripe. Cut it open and you'll find clusters of seeds, each wrapped in vivid red oily membranes called arils. The flesh itself is barely edible, bitter and unpleasant, but those red arils are pure treasure. They contain lycopene at levels 70 times higher than tomatoes and beta-carotene concentrations that dwarf carrots. The arils are traditionally mixed with sticky rice, turning it sunset orange and infusing it with subtle, earthy sweetness. Vietnamese folklore claims guck grants longevity, and modern science suggests there might be truth behind the legend, given its extreme antioxidant content. The fruit only ripens once yearly, making it a seasonal delicacy rather than everyday food. While other fruit trees sleep through the winter, loquat blooms in November and ripens fruit by February, filling the hunger gap when nothing else is ready. Loquats grow in clusters, each fruit oval and apricot-sized with smooth yellow-orange skin that peels away easily. The flesh is juicy and tender, tasting like a cross between peach, mango, and citrus with floral undertones. Each fruit contains 1 to 5 large, shiny brown seeds that must be removed. The sweetness varies dramatically based on variety and ripeness, with some loquats being pleasantly mild, while others achieve honey-like intensity. The fruit bruises easily, limiting its commercial potential despite its delicious flavor. Chinese medicine has valued loquat leaves and fruit over 1,000 years, brewing them into syrups for coughs and sore throats. In California and the Mediterranean, loquat trees line streets and fill suburban yards, often producing more fruit than owners can use. Long before European settlers arrived, coastal tribes timed their fishing seasons by when these translucent orange berries appeared, naming them for the fish that spawned simultaneously. Salmon berries look like large, delicate raspberries ranging from pale yellow to deep orange-red, with a translucent quality that makes them glow when backlit. The texture is soft and slightly watery, more delicate than cultivated raspberries, with flavor that varies wildly. Yellow salmon berries taste mild and slightly sweet, while dark orange ones can be tart and almost bitter. They grow on tall, thorny shrubs throughout the Pacific Northwest's wet forest, fruiting prolifically in early summer. The berries fall apart at the slightest pressure, making transport nearly impossible. Indigenous peoples of the Pacific Northwest ate salmon berries fresh, dried them for winter, or mixed them with eulachon oil for a nutritious spread. Despite growing abundantly throughout their range, salmon berries remain almost entirely wild harvested, resisting cultivation attempts. Their name comes not from flavor but from timing, appearing when salmon return to spawn. This hairy red fruit dominates Southeast Asian markets by the ton, yet most Westerners have never seen one outside a specialty store's exotic fruit section. Rambutan's name comes from the Malay word for hair, describing soft, flexible spines that cover the entire fruit. Twisted like opening a bottle cap, and a translucent white orb emerges, glistening with moisture. The flesh is sweet and floral, similar to lychee, but slightly firmer and less perfumed. Malaysian and Indonesian cultures have cultivated rambutan for centuries, with trees producing hundreds of pounds per season. The fruit travels poorly, bruising easily and fermenting within days of harvest. This fragility keeps rambutan rare in Western markets despite being common in its native range. Fresh rambutan remains a specialty item commanding premium prices. This hybrid doesn't exist in nature. It took human intervention in 1908 to create a custard fruit that combines the best traits of two rare tropical species. Aromatic results from crossing cherimoya with sugar apple, creating a heart-shaped fruit with green, knobby skin. The flesh is pure white, creamy as pudding, with a flavor that balances pineapple, vanilla, and mango in perfect harmony. Sweetness levels exceed both parents, while texture remains smooth and consistent throughout. Created at the USDA's Miami Research Station, Aromatic remains uncommon even a century later. The trees require specific subtropical conditions and careful hand pollination, keeping production limited. Florida and California grow small quantities, with fruit selling for premium prices at specialty markets. Most people will never encounter one outside high-end fruit boutiques. This foot-long pod filled with vanilla-flavored fluff will never appear in stores because it self-destructs within hours of harvest, keeping it forever local. Ice cream bean pods reach 18 inches long, splitting lengthwise when ripe to reveal white, fluffy pulp wrapped around black seeds. The texture is cotton soft and dissolves on your tongue, tasting mildly sweet with subtle vanilla notes. You suck the pulp off each seed, working your way down the pod like eating edamame made of dessert. Indigenous Amazonian communities have cultivated inga trees for millennia as shade cover for coffee and cacao. But the fluffy pulp deteriorates within hours of opening, turning brown and fermenting almost immediately. This extreme perishability makes commercial sales impossible. Ice cream beans remain hyperlocal, known only to those who live where inga trees grow. Ice cream beans vanish too quickly for commerce. Our next fruit survives shipping but remains rare for different reasons. Most people find it beautiful but bland. Night-blooming cactus flowers transform into fruits so Instagram-worthy that demand finally made this rarity available worldwide. though many first-timers wonder what the fuss was about. Dragon fruit's fuchsia skin erupts with green-tipped scales that curve backward like stylized flames. Slice through, and you'll find snow-white flesh speckled with thousands of tiny black seeds. The texture is similar to kiwi, but the flavor disappoints many. Subtle and mildly sweet with notes of pear and cucumber. The appearance promises intensity, but taste delivers refreshing understatement. Southeast Asian farmers cultivated dragon fruit commercially starting in the 1990s, breaking its rarity. Vietnam now produces most of the world's supply. The spectacular flowers bloom for a single night, requiring hand pollination before dawn. Despite increased availability, pink-fleshed varieties stay genuinely rare and expensive. Brazilian backyards overflow with these ribbed red gems, yet they'll never reach your grocery store because they ferment within 24 hours of picking. Pitanga's distinctive shape features 7 or 8 vertical ridges, creating a miniature pumpkin silhouette barely an inch across. The thin skin ranges from bright red to deep purple-black, with darker fruits tasting sweeter and less resinous. Bite into one and the flesh bursts with a complex flavor that's simultaneously sweet, tart, and aromatic with piney undertones. The resinous quality divides people into devotees and detractors. Portuguese colonizers spread pitanga to tropical regions worldwide where it naturalized aggressively. Trees produce fruit nearly year-round, but pitanga bruises instantly and ferments within 24 hours, dooming commercial aspirations. This extreme perishability keeps pitanga stubbornly local. Fresh pitanga remains unknown to most of the world. Throughout the Caribbean, street vendors sell these by the bagful, but they'll never go mainstream because the edible portion is only 20% of what you're holding. Spanish lime has nothing to do with actual limes. The thin and brittle green shell cracks between your teeth, revealing a single large seed covered in salmon pink flesh. The pulp clings tightly to the seed, requiring serious suction and scraping to extract every bit. The flavor is sweet tart and tropical, like a cross between lychee and lime. Eating Spanish lime is a participatory sport, leaving piles of cracked shells and seeds. The fruit goes by different names: quenepa in Puerto Rico, mamon in Central America, and genep in Jamaica. Indigenous Caribbean peoples cultivated it long before European contact, but the terrible flesh-to-waste ratio keeps the Spanish lime regionally beloved, yet commercially impractical. This tiny red berry makes lemons taste like candy and vinegar like juice, yet you can't buy it in stores because the sugar industry fought to keep it classified as an additive. Miracle fruit berries are oblong and bright red, about the size of a coffee bean. The berry tastes mildly sweet, but miraculin, a glycoprotein inside, binds to sweet receptors on your tongue and activates them only in the presence of acid. For 30 to 60 minutes, lemon juice tastes like lemonade and vinegar becomes fruit punch. In the 1970s, the FDA blocked commercialization after sugar industry lobbying, classifying it as a food additive requiring approval. This regulatory limbo killed commercial prospects for decades. Recently, miracle fruit has found new life, sold as tablets online, but fresh berries remain genuinely rare outside specialized growers. Open this fruit crosswise and you'll create perfect 5-pointed stars, but that beauty comes with a catch. It can be fatal for anyone with kidney problems. Carambola's rigid skin forms 5 distinct lobes that create automatic star shapes when sliced. The entire fruit is edible with a crisp, juicy texture similar to a firm grape. The flavor varies dramatically. Some are bracingly sour, while sweet varieties taste like a blend of citrus, apple, and grape. Southeast Asian cuisines have used carambola for centuries, but it contains high levels of caramboxin and oxalic acid. Healthy kidneys filter these easily, but people with kidney disease can experience serious complications or death. This warning has dampened Western enthusiasm. Many stores post warnings, and doctors advise kidney patients to avoid it entirely. The health risk keeps carambola perpetually niche. While common mulberries stain American sidewalks, this Middle Eastern variety produces berries twice as large from trees that live for centuries but resist modern cultivation. Persian mulberries reach up to 2 inches long with deep purple-black color so dark they appear almost black. The texture is softer and juicier than standard mulberries, bursting with sweet tart flavor that combines blackberry, raspberry, and hints of wine. Each berry stains everything with persistent purple juice and spoils within hours of harvest. Ancient Persia cultivated black mulberries extensively, with Shah Abbas I ordering thousands planted in Isfahan during the 17th century. The trees live for centuries, with some specimens exceeding 500 years, but they're notoriously difficult to establish. Young trees take years to fruit, and commercial orchards struggle with fragile harvest. Most Persian mulberries come from ancient trees in Mediterranean regions. This football-sized fruit can weigh 15 pounds, making it too massive and fragile for most commercial shipping, keeping fresh specimens rare outside the tropics. Soursop's dark green skin bristles with curved, fleshy spines that bend rather than poke. Inside, pure white flesh is cotton soft and fibrous, with custard-like consistency. The flavor combines pineapple, strawberry, coconut, and banana with sour notes that balance the sweetness. The aroma is intoxicating, filling rooms with perfume that's simultaneously fruity and floral. The sheer size and extreme perishability make fresh soursop nearly impossible to transport long distances. Most break down within days of reaching perfect ripeness. Modern freezing technology has allowed soursop pulp to reach global markets as frozen puree, but fresh whole soursop remains genuinely rare outside tropical regions. This waxy, bell-shaped fruit floods Southeast Asian markets daily, but remains virtually unknown in the West, dismissed by exporters as too bland to bother shipping. Jambu's waxy skin gleams from pale green to deep pink, flaring whiter at the bottom like an upside-down bell. The flesh is white, extraordinarily crisp, and so full of water it gushes when you bite down. The flavor is delicate to the point of being almost absent, mildly sweet with hints of rosewater. Southeast Asian prize jambu not for its intense taste, but for its cooling, hydrating crunch on hot days. Malaysian and Thai street vendors sell jambu with sweet chili salt for dipping. The extreme water content and minimal flavor make it commercially unviable for export markets seeking intensity over refreshment. Peruvian ice cream shops offer dozens of flavors, but lucuma outsells them all. This dry, golden fruit remains virtually unknown outside South America, despite being a national treasure. Lucama's green exterior conceals dense, dry flesh the color of egg yolk. The texture is mealy and starchy, almost chalky, making fresh lucuma difficult to eat straight. The flavor combines sweet potato, butterscotch, and maple with subtle vanilla notes. Most people encounter lucuma as powder or in ice cream, where its concentrated sweetness creates exceptionally rich results that Peruvians prefer over vanilla or chocolate combined. Indian civilization revered lucuma, cultivating it in highland valleys where few other fruits thrived. Modern Peru embraces it as a national treasure, yet lucuma remains genuinely rare internationally. The dry texture and acquired taste prevent global traction despite enthusiastic promotion. Southern Brazil hides a cherry-sized treasure that tastes like concentrated real cherries with tropical mystery, yet remains virtually unknown beyond the Rio Grande do Sul state. Cherry of the Rio Grande resembles a flattened sphere about an inch across, ripening from green to deep crimson purple. The thin skin yields to soft, juicy flesh with flavor that's intensely fruity and complex, tasting like sweet cherry mixed with plum, passion fruit, and something slightly resinous. Unlike its relative pitanga, this species lacks harsh pine notes, delivering pure, concentrated fruitiness. Indigenous Guarani people have gathered these berries for centuries from wild trees along riverbanks. The fruit is impossibly fragile, bruising from gentle handling and fermenting within a day. This extreme perishability keeps it hyper-local. Brazilians eat them fresh or canned immediately. The trendy houseplant climbing apartment walls produces a fruit so peculiar it takes a year to ripen and must be eaten in stages or it'll burn your mouth with oxalate crystals. Monstera fruit resembles a green corncob covered in hexagonal plates that fit together like armor. As sections ripen over days or weeks, scales loosen and fall off, revealing creamy white flesh that tastes like pineapple, banana, and coconut fused together. You can only eat portions where scales have naturally separated. Force them off, and unripe flesh loaded with calcium oxalate crystals creates unbearable burning in your mouth and throat. Patience isn't optional. Modern houseplant enthusiasts rediscovering that their decor produces edible fruit face year-long waits from flowering to full ripeness. This extreme patience requirement keeps monstera fruit genuinely rare despite the plant's ubiquity indoors. Jamaica accidentally created a citrus so wrinkled, lumpy, and unfortunate looking that growers gave up on pretty names and just called it ugly, keeping it perpetually niche. Ugly fruit lives up to its name with thick, loose skin that wrinkles and puckers in mottled patches of green, orange, and yellow. The rind is puffy and rough, often with blemishes. But peel away that homely exterior and segments pull apart easily, with flesh that's sweet and juicy, tasting like tangerine and grapefruit had a baby with extra sweetness and less bitterness. The first ugly fruit appeared in Jamaica around 1914 as a natural hybrid growing wild. A local farmer recognized its potential despite its unfortunate appearance. The thick rind proves advantageous for shipping, yet ugly fruit remains rare, its appearance limiting mainstream appeal despite superior flavor. Aboriginal Australians knew better than to eat this intensely sour purple fruit raw. Even today, it remains rare outside specialty Australian markets, too tart for casual snacking. Davidson's plum grows as a dark purple oval about 2 inches long, with smooth skin that looks almost black when fully ripe. Cut it open, and deep burgundy flesh releases an aroma that's fruity but aggressively tart. Bite into a raw Davidson's plum, and your face will involuntarily pucker, the sourness so intense it makes lemons seem mild. Australian chefs use it in sauces, jams, and desserts where sugar mellows the acidity into something complex and wine-like. Indigenous Australians gathered it from rainforest trees, using it sparingly as a souring agent. 3 distinct species grow only in specific Australian coastal microclimates, limiting supply and keeping it stubbornly local despite antioxidant levels rivaling acai. The world's largest tree-borne fruit can weigh 80 pounds and grow directly from the trunk, yet most Westerners only discovered it recently as vegans realized unripe jackfruit mimics pulled pork. Jackfruit's spiky exterior can reach 3 feet long, covered in small hexagonal bumps. Cut through that thick skin and you'll find dozens of yellow, fleshy bulbs, each surrounding a seed. The bulbs taste like firm mango, combining pineapple, banana, and bubblegum. The aroma is powerful and divisive, sweet and funky simultaneously. Unripe jackfruit has a neutral flavor and meaty texture, making it a plant-based meat substitute that finally brought jackfruit mainstream attention. A single tree produces 100 to 200 fruits annually and can fruit for over a century. Despite this abundance in tropical regions, jackfruit remained rare in Western markets until recent plant-based food trends drove demand. While regular strawberries shout for attention with red color, these pale ghosts whisper with perfume so intense you can smell them before you see them, yet remain commercially extinct. White alpine strawberries are tiny, rarely larger than your pinky fingernail, with ivory-colored skin and pale seeds. The lack of red pigment means they stay white even at peak ripeness. The flavor is extraordinary, tasting like concentrated wild strawberry essence mixed with pineapple and rose petals. Far more aromatic and complex than commercial strawberries. Each plant produces fruit continuously through summer, but in small quantities, making them impractical for commercial agriculture. The white color offers a practical advantage. Birds identify ripe fruit by color, so white berries often escape avian attention. Despite this and superior flavor, white alpine strawberries remain genuinely rare, found only in specialty gardens. The tiny size and low yield doom commercial viability. Every cashew nut you've eaten grew hanging from the bottom of a juicy fruit that most of the world never sees because it spoils within 24 hours, wasting millions of tons annually. The cashew apple isn't technically an apple, but a swollen stem with the kidney-shaped nut attached to the bottom. The apple ranges from yellow to red with thin skin covering fibrous, juicy flesh. The flavor is sweet and astringent simultaneously, mouth-puckeringly tannic when raw, but refreshing, tasting like mango, citrus, and something slightly metallic. The astringency makes your mouth feel dry and cottony. India, Vietnam, and West Africa lead cashew production, but most operations discard the apples as waste, focusing only on the valuable nuts. Millions of tons of cashew apples rot yearly because they cannot be transported or stored effectively. This extreme perishability keeps cashew apples forever local and rare. Purple-skinned spheres, revered as the queen of fruits, hide snow-white segments so perfectly balanced that Queen Victoria allegedly offered a reward to anyone who could bring her fresh ones. She never got them. Mangosteen's thick purple rind feels leathery and firm, requiring a careful squeeze or knife to crack open without crushing delicate segments inside. The rind bleeds purple juice that stains permanently. Inside, 4 to 8 pearly white segments nestle together, each translucent and glossy. The texture is soft and juicy, melting on the tongue, while the flavor achieves perfect balance between sweetness and acidity with subtle floral notes. Trees take 7 to 10 years before producing fruit, then may not fruit every year. This extended timeline limits supply. Fresh mangosteen commands premium prices, often $10 per pound or more. The combination of cultivation difficulty and delicate nature keeps mangosteen genuinely rare and expensive. Durian divides humanity into devoted camps. Cashew apples are discarded by millions. Monstera fruit takes a full year to ripen, one section at a time. Commerce never stood a chance against nature's creative refusal to cooperate. The rarest fruit isn't always the hardest to grow. Sometimes it's just too honest, too fragile, or too strange for the modern world to bother with. Which makes you wonder what other incredible things we've optimized right out of our lives. Which fruit surprised you most? Ever tasted one of these or have a rare fruit story from your travels? Drop it in the comments. This is Stella Eureka, signing off.